The recent energy crisis is so terrible in many different ways. One, it's somebody who was close to Zelensky who was tied to it. The civilians are dealing with power cuts. The troops on the front lines, their morale is going to be affected, as will everybody's. And winter in Eastern Europe is brutal enough as it is. So, for this to happen, at a time when there are all these fake peace offers coming from Witkoff and now Jared Kushner's involved. It just could not have happened at a worse time for Zelensky, but most importantly, the people of Ukraine. Can you put into words just how damaging this is for the entire country?
Yeah, I'm concerned about it. The scandal where what was it? One of Zelensky's close friends was caught in this
Yeah.
scandal with the power companies.
To where he also fled the country.
Yes, he fled the country. Zelensky's, I mean, this is extremely embarrassing to Zelensky. I have come to think, and I could be wrong, that Zelensky is honest, but the problem is these are people who grew up in the Soviet Union, who grew up in the post-Soviet Ukrainian state, where bribery, corruption, dirty deals was just it's this is the way it is throughout all the former Soviet countries. And it's very hard when you get successful people. And Zelensky's a comedian. He came up through talent, really. And I think he's a patriot. And if you watch his television show that got him president, he plays a school teacher who becomes accidentally president of Ukraine. And of course, it's the television show is called The Servant of the People, and that's what he's named his political party, the Servant of the People Party. And there has been significant reforms, but the country obviously is, I think Zelensky's doing the right thing in allowing the independent investigators to function. He initially went against that and said, no, that was wrong. We need to have this cleaned out. So I think he's opening the books. And here his chief of staff is left, evidently some taint there. Um, so we don't know, but of course we have to understand that the reason that Zelensky was picked by the Ukrainian people in the election in 2019 is not because he's some media star. He's a clown. He is a comic. They picked him because he was a symbol. And he was to understand that he was to be that humble person. That's who they wanted, that humble school teacher. That's who they wanted to be their president. And he has had to be that. And if he won't be that, they'll find someone else who will be that. And I think that's why the Ukrainians they lost faith in the big Ukrainian politicians. That's why they elected a non-politician, because all of them had some kind of Soviet background. And so I think the Ukrainian people must navigate this, and I think the real heroes are Ukrainian military intelligence. They're the ones that saw the attack coming. They're the ones that prepared the country. They're the ones that defended the country. And I think the more that the Ukrainian people understand how things work, the more the corruption is swept away, the better they'll be.
This has led to other politicians like Klitschko, Kira Rudik, Poroshenko calling for a change in government. There's now talk of elections during wartime, which is almost unheard of. And again, the morale is the most important thing. Can you see this being a point that the entire country may end up getting divided and Russia will get exactly what it wants because the country won't be together? Or do you think they're just going to be able to push through this like they have with every other tragedy?
As long as they can eat and sleep and fight, they will do so. If their society collapses for want of power, for want of support from abroad, if you have something critical that they lose, that they can't fight anymore, and that their population can't be maintained, they can't be fed or kept warm in the winter, then they could collapse. It could happen, where it could happen to all of us. But they are determined, short of that collapse, they're determined to fight. And they are not dependent on one leader, and they will demand a leader that is honest. And Zelensky, look, Zelensky could have fled. He could have betrayed the war. He did not. They are
Mm,
successful under Zelensky. They are not going to forget that. They have succeeded in stopping the Russians. Um, I think they'll probably stay with Zelensky, but they could replace him. And as long as they pick the right person and not someone who has fooled them. And I think this is where the fear comes in, is that will we find somebody who's going to trick us, who's going to surrender us? They know that Zelensky holds the line. He basically Zelensky won't surrender the country. I think he's shown that, and this is why the Russians hate him so much. Now maybe we're all being fooled. Maybe Zelensky's an agent and he's playing the long game. I don't think so. I just
mm,
don't believe. People can be very conspiratorial, especially from the former Soviet Union. They could say, "Oh no, I know Ukrainians who say I don't trust Zelensky," but I think that a lot depends on whether they can keep their power grid going and whether the supplies from Poland can keep, from the rest of Europe can keep flowing in. If that is cut off from Europe, and if their power grid collapses, I'm afraid they could collapse.